What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about video game sales. And this is something that I think really, look, it's always been around, and it's always been something I've even talked about. When games hit certain milestones, I do cover it, and I'm going to speak to that, I guess, in this video. But it's always there. It has really come to the forefront with this Final Fantasy VII Rebirth situation of the sales, and every day it seems like it. And I made a joke about this on Twitter. It either sounds like this game is doing record-breaking, unbelievable numbers, or it's doing like the worst a game could possibly hope to do, right? Like it's going to lose, it's going to shut Square Enix down, or they should throw a parade of how good it's going, right? And again, like it's been something that's been going on for a long time, but it really got me thinking, like, man, I'm not necessarily growing tired about it. Like, I'm a numbers guy. I went to school for math. I'm into math I'm good at math. So I do like numbers, and I do like to see these things. But I think the care that people have and this, like, rooting interest in it, I really think it's messing with people. And I mean, that's not a shocker, right? You look at social media, a lot of things ruin, I think, people from whether it's propping up Sony or Microsoft or PlayStation, whatever, as like gods, right? Making console manufacturers gods to people. It's unhealthy, and it's definitely not a good thing to do. But so you could say a lot of things in the gaming industry that people do aren't really what they should. I think sales are another one, and I touched upon this briefly with when we talked about the sales of Rebirth, but I wanted to make it about just gaming in general. And so I wanted to make this video. I was having a Twitter exchange from a Night Sky Prince, who's a fellow Final Fantasy content creator, and he's a great guy, and he makes a lot of really good content. And he made a good tweet and a good point. I think I didn't counter. I think I hopefully added to it in a nice way where I really, like I just said, I think people have this almost unhealthy interest in sales. And the truth of the matter is, it doesn't really matter at all. Now, here's the thing. I think it's only select people. And you could probably, again, like console warriors and like all these things that sometimes we talk about on these channels, I think you could say that for a lot of them. It's not imaginary people per se. There's definitely real people that believe it. But I feel like they're what you see online. They're a very loud, I guess, minority. And I have spoken about this in different, I guess, elements before. Games sell a lot. And games can get viewed by a lot of people, and games can get talked about by a lot of people, and you don't always see it. In fact, I mean, you see what's online, right? And I've said this before with like friends of mine, like we're friends or we're close friends. They don't watch my stuff. They don't even stay, invested in the internet of gaming culture. And I envy one in particular that I'm thinking of. He really stays away. He went into like Uncharted 4 completely blind. He didn't watch one trailer. And I always, joke with him. I envy that. But the truth is, I really feel like most people are that. The internet's big, and there's a lot of people on the internet, but at the same time, in some ways, it's kind of fake. And we've said that, before, again, in different ways. But when it comes to sales, I think it's the same thing. I think it's all part of like the same issue. There's many, many people that buy a game, enjoy it, don't enjoy it, buy it, don't buy it, and they move on. And I'm not saying you can't have an opinion. That's why I started the video the way I did. I talk about it. I find it interesting. I'm a commentator. I can't shut up, right? Like I always want to not necessarily push my opinions on others, but I like to say it out loud. And if you want to watch it, you want to watch it. Like honestly, that's where I stand in it. I just find these things interesting, and I want to talk about it. And then if people listen or don't listen, whatever. But some people get very caught up into it, right? And it tends to happen. Console warrior stuff, I think, pushes it, right? Where when a Final Fantasy, Square Enix has gotten into this bubble recently, right? Where if a game doesn't perform, even if maybe it does perform and people think it doesn't perform, the first thing people say is, well, they shouldn't have done the, exclusive thing with PlayStation. That's holding them back. It's hurting them. Like, again, like I'm not saying you can't comment on it. I'm just saying I think some people get so invested in that when in reality, most people just truly could not care less. And I actually think that's the more healthy thing. You can keep boiling it down to all these other elements that we've talked about. These are massive corporations and companies, and some care about us, or some aspects of them or departments of them care about us. Like I would say Tetsuya Nomura probably cares about the gamer's experience with a game that he makes, right? So I'm not saying like everybody is so heartless, which is a funny Nomura connection point right there. But you know what I mean? I think like obviously the people working on the game want to make a game people are going to buy or people are going to enjoy. But I think in general, people are getting very invested in these corporate big, like higher than that, higher than the Tetsuya Nomura's, right? Higher than, any of these studios. And they're getting so invested in, well, they're going to have to switch course, or they're going to have to do this or do that. I mean, like, look, I've really wanted Alan Wake to sell, right? And my backing on that is I just want more of the game. But ultimately, if the game did okay, and if Remedy is allowed to keep doing what Remedy is doing, I could care less. If the game sells 1.3 million, if it sells 1.5 million, I don't care, as long as they keep as long as they keep making games. Let me finish that sentence, because I think that's important. These people that are not really connected and don't have to be, they buy a game or don't buy a game, and that's it. Then they wait for the next game, if there is a next game, right? They buy or don't buy Final Fantasy 16. They don't know nor probably care. Well, I mean, some of them do. But again, I think the vast majority, 17, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. You know what I mean? They're not going to like pitch meetings and making sure that Square Enix is going to be okay or not okay and be able to make 17. That's not where they're at. And again, I don't necessarily know if any one side is like perfectly correct. Look, I don't do that, right? Like, I don't live my life that way. I also don't live my life where like every day it's like a stress fest like thing where, I'm pitching how to make Square Enix a better place, and how to negotiate their contracts. I think you have to take a little bit of both sides, or at least, I do, right? Where it's like, I like to talk, I like to make these videos, but what I take from these people, and like the friend I keep mentioning, is maybe even like the lack of care, and not the lack of care for the games. He's a passionate gamer. He can hang with me. I can talk to him about games, and he can talk to me, back about games. But he's not, he's not worried or like, oh man, Alex, if Square Enix doesn't do this, I mean, God knows if they'll be able to do Final Fantasy 8 remake or 9 remake, or make Final Fantasy 19 or 20. You know what I mean? It's he either buys Rebirth or doesn't buy Rebirth. And I think a lot of people are like that. And I think that element of how they think, I think that's what people just have to be reminded. And that's what I said in the tweet, right, to Night Sky Prince. I think people just kind of have to be reminded that a lot of people, more of the casuals and not the ones in the trenches. And look, like, it's not always great to do that. Like, I'm a big game preservation guy, and I think we need people to like shove the preservation message and yell at these companies, because they don't really care nor listen. If you sit back and just be passive about it, they're going to let these games, go digital and all this stuff, right? So, I mean, I've been very passionate about that. And in that case, yeah, I don't think you can actually sit back. But in some of the more like console warrior stuff, or worrying too hard, or thinking that you can like do the contract negotiations for them, right? Like, these are big boys and girls. They are paid a lot of money. And it's what I said, I truly believe, when we talked about like, is Final Fantasy Rebirth doing good or not? If they want it to do better, if they think the Sony thing isn't working, they will course correct. They'll change. I'm positive about it. These companies, especially in gaming, because the money's there, but it's really dependent on success in the gaming industry, right? They can't have like 5 games in a row tank. Like, if something's going wrong, they have to look and say, if putting it on one console, if that's actually it, right? If putting it on one console is killing us and losing us tens of millions of dollars, we will not sign that contract again. That will happen. And we might see that. We might see Square Enix never do what they're doing with Sony ever again. And that would be the indicator that, okay, it wasn't working, right? But at the same time, am I going to care too much? These are people that make a lot of money. Ultimately, from my perspective, and again, like what I've said for an example of like Alan Wake, as long as like they're still able to make games, I don't really care about that kind of strategy. If they pivot to be third party, if they're still going to give me, because I like Final Fantasy, right? If they're still going to give me Final Fantasy, if they're doing Kingdom Hearts 4 and 5, and you know what I mean? Like, that's what I want at the simplest level. That's what I want. I don't really care if they sell 2.8 or 2.9 or 3 million. Doesn't matter which one. Are you able to give me Kingdom Hearts 4? Okay. Are you able to do it in a way that I trust, like the development, and I think the game's going to be good? Okay. I don't really care about anything. You know what I mean? And I think that might be one of the more healthier ways of looking at these situations. And again, I think the majority do. That's the funny thing. I think most look at it like that / don't look at it at all. Don't care about it in the slightest. I think the people that care about it the most are the vast minority. And it's okay. Like, I'm in the minority on plenty of things, right? It's okay to be in it and to be, passionate about it. But I think there's like that line. Same thing with like console warrior stuff. Like, it's cool to be passionate about PlayStation. I'm passionate about all of them, right? Really, I think more than maybe, again, minority. I think I'm more passionate about gaming than 96% of people out there. But is there a line to being like, okay, well, you can kind of pull back, or you can remind yourself like what normal people think, which is like not much. Like, they're not too invested, and that's not always a bad thing. Yeah, it's good to remind yourself of that sometimes. So hopefully this was an interesting conversation. You guys let me know what you think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.